going on with the picture? Hey, what's up, Vanities? Welcome. How are you, my friend? It's been a bit since I've seen you around. You doing okay? Hope you're doing well. I'm wondering if it's just the fact that I'm wearing a white shirt and it's throwing off the white balance. Is the growing darkness in my heart? I hope that's not the case. Hey, Moose, what's up, man? Welcome. Doing okay? Just IRL stuff going on? Yeah. I'm doing okay. I'm pretty tired, but it's like it's one of those where it's not like I'm tired and I want to just quit everything. It's more like I'm tired and I'm just really ready for a break. I can sense that summer break is within striking distance. It's 22 days away. It's going to be a good one. I'm very much looking forward to this summer. Hey, big crowds, welcome. How was the anniversary? The anniversary was delightful. My wife and I celebrated our 14-year anniversary yesterday. Thank you for remembering, big crowds. It's very kind of you. We went out to a local sushi restaurant that has a big porch so that we could still sit outside. We're still being a bit wary about eating inside restaurants. And we picked up a couple of frames. Hobby Lobby was running a 50% off frames sale. So anytime you can go get super cheap frames, you go jump on that. We are in the process of trying to put frames on. We're almost always in the phase of trying to keep frames. We have a bit of an art addiction. It's a very expensive addiction, so we haven't been adding to it very much recently, but we did get some. We bought ourselves an anniversary present and got some art from Kay Nyman, who is a great artist here on Twitch. So we got some frames from that, and I had picked up a couple of sort of small pieces from Kirk Shannon for a steal as part of a gift to my wife back for Christmas last year. So we got a couple of frames for those. So you missed summer breaks, Figment. Well, your summer break last year was one day. Oh man. Oh my goodness, that's horrible. We all need a vacation, right? 2021 was the pewter anniversary. I don't keep up with that stuff, Moose. As ironic as it sounds, I don't know all of the traditional wedding anniversary things. Patrons of the arts, we try to be vanities. We try to be. We also run a pretty tight budget, and we don't spend a lot of money on other things, and that allows us to occasionally spend a little bit of money on art. To sort of put everything in context, my dinner tonight was a bowl of cereal and a granola bar. I could have had pizza rolls, but I've had pizza rolls for a couple of nights, and they're getting a bit old. So you spend on the nice things, and then you go back to eating turkey sandwiches for lunch and having cereal for dinner. We're not going broke, by the way. We're tightwads. So don't worry about us. I appreciate if you are worrying about it. I just went with a cheap metal given the economic collapse. So yeah, I understand that. It's for more than half the country. I think the only people really getting richer are the people that bet a whole bunch in the stock market on things like Bitcoin or Ethereum or GameStop stuff. Turkey sandwiches are good. Swiss cheese, bacon, mayo. See, I don't like mayonnaise that much. Well, let me rephrase. I don't like American mayonnaise that much. I'm a fan of mayonnaise from the Mediterranean area, and I've had Japanese mayonnaise once, but I need to I need to get a little bit more experience with that before I say I'm a fan of it.
Are you not entertained?
Are you not entertained?
Is this not why you are here?
Art of Lee. Oh my goodness gracious. Lee, you are... Oh my goodness gracious. Art of Lee, thank you so much for that raid. For those of you that do not know, Art of Lee is a great artist. He has such a lovely crowd of people that hang out in his chat. There are some truly helpful and loving individuals there. It is a very nice community. I really encourage you all to go hang out as much as you can in Lee's room. Lee does a lot of art, and after doing art during the day, he sometimes switches over to a bit of variety. He might be just chatting. He plays games on stream. He's just a good guy. You should go follow Lee. If you are not already following Lee, you absolutely should be following Lee. His art is also just beautiful stuff. So, I have been doing better than I have been in a long time. Things got real rough back over the beginning of the semester and had some pretty low times, but Sick Muse Slays, thank you so much for that. Let me introduce myself. For those of you that might not know me, my name is Shane. I teach history at college for a living, and I stream history here on Twitch for fun. So tonight we're actually talking about some Mesoamerican historical stuff. We haven't actually really kicked off. I usually chat with the people here in the room for a few minutes before we start rolling and make sure that everybody's having a good week. Please feel free to chat as much as you would like. If you have questions about anything at any time, you are welcome. We have ourselves a neat little Google Earth window here that we use quite a bit. I do also pretty frequently share images of things that we talk about. For example, this is a really cool Olmec temple at a place called San Lorenzo. And we can talk about La Venta, which we'll get to in a little bit, but we've got some photos that we can share as well. Sometimes I'll break out artifacts for things that, matter. Like if I have something that is from the particular culture that we're talking about, I might break out a piece of pottery or something. And yeah, we just have a good time when we make bad pop cultural references. Like tonight, we're going to talk about the invention of writing in the New World. The Olmec are the first people that come up with writing. So I almost always have a really bad pun for the title of the stream. So tonight it's Stone Temple Petroglyphs, because they wrote stuff with stuff on stone. And you get the bad joke. You get the bad joke. Bad jokes, dad jokes, horrible puns, all welcome. I hope you are all welcome. Let me make sure that I say hello to everybody, because I always want to make sure that I say hello to everybody. Macienda, welcome. I hope you're having a great one. Let's see who we have here. Sick Muse, thank you. And thank you for the follow. Art of Lee, of course, thank you so very much. How are you doing, my friend? What were you working on? I've been a horrible host here. Please make sure that, Lee, if you want to, you share all your socials, you share your store link. Anything that you want to, you are welcome, my friend. You know that mi chato es su chato. Pistol Pete, welcome. Bloss, hey man, that elk picture that you just posted is on fire. Techman, hello. Thank you very much for coming by. Yeah, Lee. I appreciate that, man. Yeah, things are looking up. I managed to get vaccinated, which took a whole big load off. Having to go into a teaching environment with a lot of students, especially how much COVID was going on around in my area. I didn't end up getting it. I was what I would consider probably too paranoid, but I was really worried about bringing that back home. But my wife and I are both fully vaccinated now. which has taken a big load off. I got a big project cleared that I'm going to need to finish this summer to wrap up the sociology degree that I'm getting. I'm working on another master's degree in sociology, and I got my final research project cleared through the committee, which is a big weight off. So actually have to run some 5 hours. Yeah, super hungry. Just get the noms. You go get those noms, man. Absolutely, Lee. Thank you so much for that raid, man. You are awesome. Your fiance teaches and still hasn't gotten it. Yeah, you just got to be like ridiculously paranoid and like washing everything. And my hands got so dry, my fingers started cracking, and you got to get like the medicated lotion and get the, start quoting Silence of the Lambs. We ain't going to go there. I started a business building yachts in your attic. Awesome. Sales are going through the roof. Dun, 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 dun. Wow. I love it. Mind if I ask which one you got? You got Pfizer. I got the Pfizer too. I got both doses Pfizer. The first one didn't really do much at all. My arm was pretty sore for about a day. It felt like someone had slugged me pretty hard in the arm. The second shot, I got the arm soreness thing again. And for about a day and a half, I felt like I had done a lot of just really active yard work. Like I had gotten out and trimmed all of the shrubberies in the yard and raked everything. And I wasn't feeling horrible, but I could tell that I was just a little bit, not high energy. But it wasn't bad. I would say that I was at about a 6 energy level instead of usually, where I normally am. So totally worth it. Another MA. Yeah, I know. I'm a glutton for punishment. What a Figment and I were actually in my first master's in history. We were students together. A colleague of mine. Haven't gotten it yet, but you can. You've been putting it off. Oh yeah, man. It's not so bad. It really isn't. And the alternative of, potentially losing your smell and taste for what might be months, you get the long haul syndrome where you're like 6 months in and you still, can't smell anything, or you are in the hospital on a ventilator. Yeah. You have a pimple that keeps coming back at the injection site. I do not have that issue. And I've not heard about that one either, but that's an interesting. I know that some of it has to do with the oh my goodness gracious, the particular types of particles that they use can cause a particular type of allergic reaction, and that might be some of it. Nick Shaughnessy. Hey Kyle, welcome my friend, welcome. You like the SDP title? Yeah. I can't claim credit for that. I have to pass that one off to Kilted Preacher, one of our mods here. I was having a dull brain moment earlier in the day, and I couldn't come up with a good title. I was going to call the stream No Country for Olmec, but I don't really like splitting up words to make the pun. And we almost settled for Old MacDonald Had a Farm. But I didn't know how I was going to make Donald work, because that's not really a pre-Columbian name. So I don't know if I'll get the vaccine here in Korea. The schedule is a mess. They're mostly using AstraZeneca, which has a lot of people unsure. Most English teachers here are in their 20s, so you can't get it anyway. Yeah. The AstraZeneca stuff that people are worried about, I will go ahead and make sure that everybody understands that the blood clot issues that are happening with the AstraZeneca and the Johnson & Johnson are minute. In the United States, 7 people or 6 people, like a single digit number of individuals had a blood clot issue out of more than 7 million vaccines. So that is a very, very low thing. And I'm not trying to tell anybody to, not take that into account, but I'm also telling everybody that the chances of you getting that are pretty low. But AstraZeneca is fine. Super rare. Yeah. Super rare stuff. There's blood issues with Pfizer. People are getting vaccinated. Vaccine-induced ITP. United Infect. Hey, no, man, I'm not trying to criticize anybody. I don't know. You do you with your body. I am not going to tell anybody what or what not to put in their body. That's yours, not mine. So you do you, man. I got your back. I was just trying to say that, like, in my opinion, the potential light risk of side effects is way better than the very real concept of trying to get it, because Mississippi's still pretty bad. The Korean government has decided no one under 30 can get the AstraZeneca vaccine. Most of the teachers would take it if they offered it, but you guess you get what they get. Home schedules continue to delay. You do you, but get vaccinated unless there's an allergy issue. There is, we could get into an entire philosophical debate here. I encourage everybody to get vaccinated. I don't have a problem with vaccines. I've got a lot of them. I've got more than some people because I, go to the weird places of the world that a lot of people don't normally travel to. So I've got stuff that a lot of normal people, or a lot of regular people, gosh gracious, a lot of people don't normally get. That's what I'm trying to say. So I don't have any problems with it. But I also don't like the idea of government telling me, or people telling me what to do. But that's just because I'm pretty stubborn. Got your first Moderna, sore arm. Yeah, I had the sore arm thing too. Getting it, asthma and COVID don't go well together. We have 5 different periods. Oh, wow. Get a bunch of weird vaccine shots. Yeah, there we go. And Kyle's been to, like, even some of the places that I haven't been to. Kyle, have you had the malaria one? I have not had the malaria. Let's get to some history, though, because that's what some people came here to see, not me ramble on and on. So let's see. We're going to talk tonight about the Olmec people to begin with, and then we will move on from the Olmec and we'll talk a little bit about what we call the Preclassic Maya, and then we'll talk about all of the fun excitement around a pretty big city-state that becomes a central part of the sort of pan-Mexican area called Teotihuacan. Olmec, the people that discovered vaccines. Have the stream in your wireless headphones while putting all your farm animals away for the night. Oh, cool. Pistol Pete, I would be interested in knowing what kind of farm animals you have. I quite like animals, especially ones that I don't have to take care of. All right, so first off, special thanks to Jimmy for being a test subject for all those vaccines. Amen. We would not be where we are without the Jimmys of the world. Chickens and ducks. My wife would love to pick your brain. My wife wants both chickens and ducks. I'm not sold on the idea, though. So, not saying that I'm necessarily the only one that gets to decide that. My wife has big plans. Anyway, first off, who are these people? Who are the Olmec? Well, if you were around last week, we talked about the earliest cultures in the Americas, and we sort of looked at it as a south to north thing, where we talked about some old stuff in South America and Central America and North America. We talked about some of the first cities, and we got up to the point where we're having what we would call real civilization, where we are living in fully sedentary lives. We're beginning to classify ourselves in social stratus, social classes, and we have all sorts of cool things that people want and all of these trade goods, and we have measures of exchange and all of the nice trappings of an agricultural revolution where people could specialize in certain areas. So tonight we're going to talk about what is the ultimate product of all of that, and those are people turning into kingdoms, because in the old arc of civilization, once you figure out how to make enough food so that people don't have to just farm, well, guess what? That means that some people are going to quit farming and become government and religion, and that's always the first two things that show up, and religion's probably older than government. Are the oldest cities in the north? Not actually, Kyle. The oldest examples of cities that we have, the oldest inhabited places that we have are actually down here in South America. There's a place right about here called Monteverde. That goes back really far. back into the 18,000 BC range. There's a big city up here in the Americas that's called Poverty Point. It's about 3,500 BC. So, I'm sorry, 3,500 BC. Yeah. Where's Salsa Verde? No. The debate of how people got into the Americas and where they settled first is a big one. And to rehash even part of that would get us back into what we were covering last week. So the great thing about that is, and for all those people that might be new from Lee's stream, if there's a topic in history that you like, I encourage you to go dig through the VODs, because I try to save every single one of them. And there might be a random topic that just strikes your fancy, and you can go check that out and have some history in a fun, relaxed setting. Because history doesn't have to be boring, right? It doesn't have to be Professor Binns from Harry Potter. It doesn't have to be that guy that taught you high school history who was a coach that just put up slides for you to copy down. I'll just watch the video from your fault for skipping class. There are some pretty big debates about how people got into the Americas. One of the big theories is that they moved into the central part of North America first, and the other one is that they followed the coastline first and went all the way down to South America. There is a debate that is pretty heavy, and there's evidence to support both of them. So we really don't know. But we got to the point of cities. And the Olmec are going to be the first people that really turn that into something else. These cities are going to grow, and they're going to begin to expand outside of just the city limits. And that means we have ourselves a city-state or a kingdom. So first off, what's up with the Olmec? What's the word here? Well, the word Olmec is actually what they called themselves. And it means the people of rubber, or the rubber people. And you go, what the devil kind of name is rubber people? Well, the thought is that this is a reference to native rubber that they used to make balls. And here we're talking about balls used in sport. Sports balls. Yeah. And this is a pretty interesting concept. One of the things that the Olmec develop, of course, is, well, you might not know this, but one of the things that the Olmec develop is this game of competitive sports where you have this big rubber ball and you try to bounce it through a hoop. The hoop is not like basketball where you put the ball in the hoop. It's actually like this, and you put the ball through the hoop this way. Wait, sports started in the first American... No, sports had existed prior to this, but sports was so important to these people that they named themselves after the ball that they used that was made out of rubber. And the Olmec people are really going to begin developing themselves right around in this area of Mexico. We see here that we have this nice, lush, fertile area that is between the Gulf of Mexico and the mountains here. Quidditch, but without flying. And only one hoop per each side instead of the three. Also, hey Yverne, how you doing? Welcome, welcome. The makers of rubber balls for games. Thanks for that. The sound and texture of a dodgeball slamming into your face. There's that perfect sound of a dodgeball. It's like, bang! Dodgeball is a go-to movie for my wife and I when we have either time to kill or days where we just don't feel very hot. We'll put in Dodgeball, True Underdog Story, and we both love that movie way too much. Watching the extras for that movie is hilarious because the director and the writer talk about how they discovered that there were certain parts of the human body that were just inherently more funny to be hit by a dodgeball. And you could probably guess where some of them are, your face and your groin area, but also stuff like the side of your head so that you get this nice whiplash effect, and your bum. So there you go. Little pop cultural nuggets about Dodgeball movie. It's etched into your memory. Well, it's hard to miss when it like literally hits you in the ear, right? And you're gonna hear that. So yeah, they named themselves after big rubber balls, and the idea here was that it was such a central part of their lifestyle that they named themselves after it. And I'm going to have to say that this puts American culture to shame because Americans are not called the United States of football. So some people really need to up their dedication to their sports ball teams. I'm just saying. Just saying. But who are they beyond that? Well, we don't really know exactly who became the Olmec or where they came from. Ethnically speaking, there are a lot of different options out there. Bum-ba-dum. Pistol Pete, thank you so much for that follow, and welcome to the adventure. Also, I should mention this while we're at it. I have this little guy right here. It's a follower goal, and we're running a goal. When we get to 500 followers, I'm going to do another stream of History of Middle-earth. So if you like Lord of the Rings or Tolkien's writing or anything of that nature, send your friends this way and tell them to hit that magic little button. It's free, doesn't cost anything. And I come on stream and I talk about the history of Tolkien's universe just like it was real. And we go into the creation of stuff and where things come from. We've covered 3 episodes so far. Those are all in the VODs that you can go check out if that seems to pique your interest. But yeah, we'll be doing another one of those when we hit 500. And we're not that far away. You believe Homer won the independent film contest with his video featuring balls hitting certain body parts. Can genetic sequencing on Olmec remains help us determine where they came from? Yes, and we are working on that. The problem is that these people are pretty old. They show up somewhere around 12,000 BC. And at that point, there were a lot of people moving through this region because it is sort of a narrow area. And there were a lot of people that were moving through on migratory patterns. And because of that, we have a lot of varied genetic markers. The populations were also pretty small, so finding intact skeletons is not necessarily hard, but comparing them to other populations is, because we don't necessarily know if this person was sort of moving through or if they were sedentary. Olmecs did make tombs and bury their dead, so that would give us a little bit more of a sort of a flag, but that starts several hundred years after they first begin their physical culture. So there's still a lot of empty space that we are working on filling in and don't completely know yet about exactly where they came from. By about 2500 BC, so even going back further than the 1200 BC mark, by 2500 BC, this area had a lot of different people that had either established small sort of semi-nomadic lifestyles or villages, and a lot of other people that were moving through that had what we would call pre-pottery physical culture. So people that were still in a lithic phase, making stuff out of stones. So there's a lot of potential people groups that could have played a role in the rise of the Olmec individuals. And what is likely to be the case is that it's probably a little bit of a lot of different people. And it's not necessarily one direct line from this tribe of people to the Olmec. It's probably several groups of people from this area sort of all moved to this area and then became...
I'm Spartacus!
Spartacus!
I'm Spartacus!
I'm Spartacus!
I'm Spartacus! I'm Spartacus! I'm Spartacus!
I'm Spartacus! Hunk! Thank you, man. Thank you so much for that. And you get the Spartacus emotes. Thanks for that sub. Hunk, by the way, planning on next Tuesday for Famous Florentines. Let me know if that works for you and Cassidy. That's the plan, though. Also, how was your vacation? Hope you had a good one. Haven't had a chance to catch you on stream since then. Things have been a bit much. Would that make you Vernicus? Vern, you can be whoever you want to, my friend. Figment, you are Spartacus. You get the Spartacus emote. You can Spartacus it up. You can throw some Spartaci in there. Thank you for that sub, Hunk. And welcome. Glad you had a good time. Okay, yeah, so we don't really know 100% where they came from. The earliest necessarily identifiable settlement that we know is a direct line from the Olmec is at a place called San Lorenzo. This place is also called Tenochtitlan, and you go, well, I know Tenochtitlan, that's the Aztec city. This is not the same Tenochtitlan. This is a different one. It's usually referred to as San Lorenzo Tenochtitlan. And that city was founded somewhere around 1600 BC as a small little sedentary village and grew over time. Where is the legendary hidden temple? I knew somebody was going to get there. I've got pictures of a giant head that we'll show you in a bit. You know how that ends. All right, so let's look at a map. Everybody knows I love maps. So here we go. What we have here is a map of Mexico, and we are going to see a few big places that are going to be really important. And this is looking at the Olmec people more or less right around the end of their civilization, somewhere close to 400 BC. Originally, though, you're going to see this area right here, San Lorenzo, Tenochtitlan, this area right here called La Venta, and then this area right here called Tres Zapotes. And these are going to be your three big centers. Now, later on, we get Laguna de los Cerros, but that's in a little bit of a later period. So originally, these three big areas right here are going to be your original habitation layers. And we'll go through each of these a little bit, and I'll show you some pictures from them. And he destroyed it, probably. Heaven knows he probably couldn't assemble that monkey statue any better than the kids. How did you not put the monkey statue together? Like, you could see the base. It's, come on, people. I really think they paid some of those kids just to fail. You like, I yelled at those kids so much. Red Jaguar's my tail. It was right there. We did try to throw around some Legends of the Hidden Temple titles for tonight's stream. So we couldn't make it work. Sometimes the stream titles just sort of fall in your lap. Like last week when we were talking about cultures developing in the Americas, and one of the big things that happened was they domesticated corn. And this was original corn, which wasn't yellow. It was sort of purple and red. So we got purple maize, which was great. And I loved that title.
Friends, Romans, countrymen, lend me your ears. I come
to bury Caesar,
not to praise him.
Welcome, DJ Cognac. Welcome. From what I've read, they straight up traumatized those kids. Oh man, that's unfortunate. You don't traumatize children. Just why can't you put the monkey statue together? You couldn't put a statue together either. Yeah, I mean, if you're mentally abused, probably couldn't do a monkey statue. You're not an engineer. Happy Earth Day. Indeed, happy Earth Day. All right, so let's talk about San Lorenzo. Okay, San Lorenzo. First off, this was the first one, and this was for a long time the big one. You're totally lost in the monkey statue thing. Kyle, did you ever watch Legends of the Hidden Temple on Nickelodeon? If not, there was a bit of sort of a question and answer. You had a couple of people on a team, and then usually 4 teams, and then doing some physical challenges and question challenges. The teams were eliminated down to 1. And then the last team actually got to run through the hidden temple, and you had to complete certain puzzles to open up different rooms and such. And the last thing that you had to do, and this was the hidden temple was timed, by the way. And the last thing that you had to do to complete the temple was put together a monkey statue, which had multiple different parts, and you had to put it in the base and assemble the parts and then hit the top of it. And you had to do that by the time that the clock ran down. Doesn't sound familiar. Yeah. It was a good show. I liked it a lot. Red Jaguars for life. And the teams were named like Red Jaguars and Blue Barracudas and things like that. The Rock should host it now. You can go find unlimited numbers of clips and stuff on YouTube if you want to. You would be okay with The Rock hosting it. But the reason that Olmec is particularly important to this is because they had a giant foam rubber Olmec head, and it was called Olmec, and it would tell stories. It would tell legends and myths about stuff, and you would have to remember the myth and then answer questions about it. And it was sort of the guest announcer. So you had a human host, and then you had Olmec, the guardian of the hidden temple. It was pretty neat. Okay, so what's up with San Lorenzo? Well, just to be clear, the show's not labeled with a pop culture thing for nothing, right? We got to get some old throwback stuff in there. And here comes KP with a clip of the final run. I can't play that on stream because they will mute my stream, and I don't want these VODs getting muted out. So, what's up with it? San Lorenzo Tenochtitlan. It is originally a big ceremonial site, and it was surrounded by a lot of really nice farmland. And it started off as the sort of first sizable Olmec city, and for about 300 years or 400 years, it was the biggest Olmec city in the region. It lost its number one spot about 900 BC. The population fluctuated a little bit. The city area itself was about 140 acres and had a stable population of about 5,000 or so people, maybe 6,000. But during different times of the year, you would see people come in from the agricultural area. So you have the city core, which is your stable sedentary individuals. But that 140 acre core was supported by about 16 or 1,700 acres of farmland that surrounded it. And in that farmland, you had another probably 12 or 13,000 people that would, during periods of the year, come into the city. So that's fairly tiny. Well, I mean, we're still talking about very early levels of civilization here. So 1,700 acres as a metropolitan area, if you will, or a city-state that has that much depending on it is pretty, yeah, large for them. Yeah, sure. And a city of 18,000 people, there are lots of cities that I know of that don't have 18,000 people in Mississippi. The city that I teach in only has about 7,000 people in it. So, and the whole county that I teach in only has 12,000 people in it. So this city was bigger than the population of a modern county. And Wiggins has a super Walmart. So, I mean, that puts them on the map, right? Anyway, but anyway, a lot of these people would come into the city during particular types of the year, especially during seasonal periods, bringing in crops also for big ceremonies. The Olmecs must have had only a dozen or two Starbucks. Yeah, Starbucks were probably not very common. You weren't going to see them right across the road from each other in San Lorenzo. Now, later on when we talk about Teotihuacan, they probably have Starbucks right across the road from each other. On every corner, every other corner instead of every corner. Probably only one Starbucks, and it's not a standalone, it's in a strip mall. How about that? That's probably about where San Lorenzo was. Anyway, so what savages? What's up with the people that live here? So the people that live in San Lorenzo are skilled craftsmen. We have lots of exports that come out of San Lorenzo. Their two big things were religious figurines, so small things that were carved out of basalt, which is a pretty common rock in the area, or things like jade, which of course is a little bit more rare, and also a little bit of obsidian, not so much, but they were also big pottery exporters, and you can find pottery from San Lorenzo, their specific type and make, in a lot of smaller villages and smaller cities that are out sort of around the region. But again, we do have nice big temples inside of San Lorenzo, including this guy, which is one of the larger temples at San Lorenzo. This is a pretty cool place. I would love to go here. Getting to this area is a bit difficult. Not that the area itself isn't necessarily well kept. You can see that it's got nice lawns, but it's really far down in Mexico. I volunteer as tribute. About what time did people transition from stone to pottery? So that actually overlaps, Kyle. In just about every ancient culture, that is an overlapping period of time. People don't stop using stone until they get really, really far into the Bronze Age. And there are even places in a lot of areas that start using metal but still use stone as a common everyday sort of tool. So even if we're looking back at places that are really, really old, like, Mesopotamia or Egypt, you're still going to see people using stone tools well into what we would consider a Bronze Age. And this is just because early going, when you're using metal, it is a luxury item, and until you figure out the best ways to forge and the best ways to mine, it's not ubiquitous in culture yet. So to get something that was made out of metal, you had to be pretty high up in the culture. And then as time goes by and they find out better techniques and they gain access to better supplies of this metal, the cost lowers, and then people start using that as an everyday sort of item instead of their stone. Because until the luxury items get sort of saturated in the culture enough that everybody can have something, it's not really going to be an easy replacement for a stone tool, because anybody can go pick up a rock, right? And we're humans, traditions. That's true. Not everybody wants to change to the fancy new iBronze tools. Some people are perfectly fine with their iRocks, Stone was good enough for my granddad. Luddites. Speaking. I love Matt coming out of nowhere with Luddites. What are you doing, computer? Why are you randomly throwing alerts at me? What are you doing? Okay. So what I'm trying to say is that the overlap period between pottery and stone is very, very broad and can cover thousands of years. And to answer that question, you would have to look at a particular culture at a particular given time. Speaking of mining, can we talk about Cerro Gordo later? If you have a question about it, I know a little bit about it. I know that it's in California, but that's AD period when that starts getting going, isn't it? It's not until like the 1800s that opens stuff up. I don't actually know exactly when that opens. BT dubs. Petrites. You guess you were relating it to the Olmecs being a pottery making society. So pottery actually shows up prior to most cultures settling down in cities. People are almost always going to have some, well, not almost always, I shouldn't say that. There are multiple examples of cultures developing pottery prior to specialization. Prior to an agricultural revolution where they settle down in cities and people can become professional pottery makers. But the pots that you find prior to that, when people are still semi-nomadic or fully nomadic, they're really bad. Like, the quality is bad. They're not standardized or uniform. They definitely don't have anything even close to a potter's wheel being used. So, yeah. That's... we start seeing pottery at different times in the Americas. In this area, you're going to start seeing it not too terribly long before. It's like the 2100s or 2000s. You start seeing early examples of pottery. But by the time we get to like San Lorenzo being an established city, pottery's everywhere. Super interesting, though. You've always wanted to go there. Well, Pistol Pete. So here's a great thing. If you come back on Tuesdays, what we do is we have a stream that is chosen by the people. So we'll, like on this coming Tuesday, we'll have a discussion about famous people from Florence, Italy, which was a request that that Hunk put in. But at the end of that, we'll have ourselves a vote, and I'll take suggestions from the audience, whomever is here, and we'll put it in a poll, and then we'll vote on it. And then whatever people vote on, we'll do that on the next viewer request stream. So if you wanted to do like ghost towns in the American West, that would be a great topic for a stream, and we could absolutely talk about Cerro Gordo and all of the fun stuff that's in New Mexico and Nevada, all those boom towns that showed up and the stories of the people behind them. So come back on a viewer request stream. History of things Shane doesn't know. The thing is, I couldn't actually talk about that because to know what I don't know would just be me going, I know that this guy exists, but I don't know what he did. Like, I know there was a kingdom of this period of time in that area, but I don't know who they were. It would just be a really random list of goofy things. Were they on the forefront of pottery development or just something that they manufactured? So San Lorenzo was just really, really good at it. And because they were the oldest of the Olmec cities, they had a bit of a leg up. They had about 100, 200 or so years before any of the other cities really got big enough to start producing stuff and exporting it. So by that point, they had become sort of the standard place to go get your pottery. Thanks for the pottery info. Absolutely. We have pots. What can we put into them? Water and plants. Yes, the voice of the people. I have the vague idea. You literally cannot do that stream. To talk about it is to know it. As soon as Shane knows something, it is no longer eligible for the stream. You have been paradoxed. Schrodinger's knowledge. Right? All right, we're almost an hour in, and I'm not even through half this discussion. You all are sidetracking me, and I completely approve, by the way. I have no problem being sidetracked. I'm just stating that I'm recognizing that I'm making no headway here. I don't know if other people are. Usually, I'm the last person that recognizes that I'm rambling. So other people are probably going, hey, we're way off topic here. I should make a channel point redemption that's really low, like 50 channel points or something, that's just called Get On With It. No, absolutely not, Vern. You are designated as the official High Poobah of Tangents, the Lord of Tangents. I realized you were distracted. Kyle. You're not distracting me, man. I love rambling about this stuff. I enjoy the fact that people are interested, and I'll just keep talking. You can ask Wada Figment, who has sat in multiple lessons with me where a professor would ask me a question and then I would just ramble and on and on and on and on and on and ask the most inane, tiny, nitpicky questions to the point that my professors would be like, let's go. Let's just move on. Because I do the same thing. Like, I want to know like all the tiny little details. You never minded because you didn't want to ask questions in class. Okay, so let's talk about La Venta. La Venta. All right, so this is an interesting site, and I found a neat little site map of it. And we have all sorts of cool things that we can look at. So we've got neat little platforms. We've got some big Acropolis sort of activity going on here. You've got some big temple stuff going on. You've got some tombs. And we've got some big old Olmec heads. We'll talk about those specifically in a little bit, by the way. I'm not just ignoring the fact that the Olmec make giant stone heads. I just sort of wanted to hold that until a little bit later. So this is La Venta. It is the sort of the second city of the Olmec, and after about 900 BC, the site at La Venta is actually going to become the largest of the Olmec sites. You love rambling about curses and magic and religion, so you understand the love of rambling. Absolutely. Absolutely. Rambling leads you to topics that you did not know that you wanted to know about. La Venta is actually interesting as a site because it sits on this particular area that's right in the middle of a lot of different ecological zones. And on one side, you have the Gulf of Mexico, of course, and they did fish. They got a lot of food from the ocean itself. Well, technically the rivers that run into the ocean. But you also have a lot of really big marshes that are sort of coastal tidewater salt marshes. But you also have mangrove swamps, and then you have the big old rainforest. So the people at La Venta have this big potential ecological sort of place to go explore. But what that means is they don't necessarily have a ton of farming. Most of their food is going to come from hunting and fishing, and they're going to augment that with a little bit of farming. But what's neat about the city too is that it's not necessarily constructed in this sort of centralized area. It's in a long line. And from the beginning of the settlement to the end of it is about 12 miles long. But it's not really that wide. It's almost like down the middle of like one big main street. So for those of us that are in the metric world or that hate miles, it's about 20 kilometers. So a fairly sizable distance of a city, but it's all in this one string, and it's almost just slightly off straight up north to south. Not all who wander are lost. Indeed, now you're throwing yet more tangents at me, and you want me to say the rest of the rhyme. And it's running through my head, but I'm not going to say it. Oh man. But that name goes with that rhyme. Anyway, so La Venta is a pretty neat site. It is going to be a really big city. By the time we get to about... so, by the way, I should say, it's founded about 1200 BC, and by the time we get to about 900 BC, it overtakes San Lorenzo, Tenochtitlan, as the largest of the Olmec cities, and it hits its peak right around about 500 BC, and at that point it has about 18,000 people living in it. It's going to start declining after that, and by about 300 BC it's almost completely abandoned. But this is it's a stratified culture. You have people that are craftspeople. There is a lot of decoration in La Venta. If you Google La Venta, you can see a whole bunch of stuff that comes out of it. One of my favorite photos is this guy. One of the things that was in a lot of the plazas were these really cool mosaics. And this is the remains of a mosaic from La Venta. I really like mosaics, by the way. One of my sort of favorite ancient things to look at. So pretty neat. This would have been filled with either other stones of this size or potentially even gravel. But this would have been what a lot of the floors of some of the larger buildings and even some of the what we would call sidewalks would have looked like. Pretty neat stuff. I would love to go check this place out. But again, it's pretty far down there. So you really have to decide to go. This, by the way, is most certainly the best preserved of all of three of the big Olmec sites. It is today pretty heavily touristed, but because of its distance, it is not touristed in the same way that you might think of something like Disney World. You know, it's not like stand in line for an hour to go see the Serpentine mosaic, right? It's not like that touristy. But of all of them, this is probably the one that gets the most visitors, which is why I found the cool map of it. All right. So what about our third big city, Tres Zapotes? And this city is going to be a little bit different than the other two. And we'll talk about that a little bit here at the end. It is, of the three, one of the younger ones, and it's also one of the few that's built with a lot of elevation. So we can see here these sort of shaded lines are elevation lines. And we can see here that sopapillas, you can see the potatoes on the maps. The Spanish word for potato is papa. So it'd be tres papas if it was 3 potatoes. Anyway, so these are elevation lines. And you can see here that all of these little spots are either buildings or earthwork mounds. And you have some pretty big temples here on the top, but then you have your sort of what we would call a business area over here. And then you have sort of a ruling area over here with your religious stuff on the high mark. This is a pretty good laid out, a pretty well laid out city. And the layout of this city would look a lot like many other cities that you might run into anywhere you go in the ancient world, with the sort of Acropolis up on the top where you have your big temples and such for your good views. So Tres Zapotes, very well laid out city, and has some really cool buildings in it that I'll show you in a little bit. I don't want to burn through all of the pictures at one time. I know that some people are just here for the pictures, and I can't really blame you. Otherwise, you're looking at this, which, let's all just be honest, it's not necessarily that impressive. Anyway, Tres Zapotes is located between some highlands, some mountains, and a big river delta. And this is going to be similar to La Venta in that they're going to have a variety of ecological zones that they can pull from. They're going to do more farming than La Venta does. They're going to be pretty big. This is also the longest lasting of the Olmec cities. Any relation to Tres Leches? No, Tres Leches, they were kind of, I don't know, a bit wishy-washy and folded, and people soured on them pretty quick. So, this is not related to Tres Leches. I do really like Tres Leches, though, which means 3 milks. There you go. Anyway, so again, Tres Zapotes is one of the younger of the 3 big. It is the youngest of the 3 big cities. It was founded around 1000 BC. It really sort of hits its biggest sort of urban populated size about 500 BC. But this guy is actually going to survive the Olmec, and it runs on until another culture, what we call the classic Veracruz culture, that lasts another 1,000+ years. And this is a big site. The habitation zone of time for Tres Zapotes is incredibly long. It's almost 2,000 years long. Because there are 3 kinds of milk in the cake. I suppose one can eat a zapote. I mean, you can. I don't know why you couldn't. Why are you doing this to me, computer? What are you doing? I keep getting these Windows alerts for do you want to install this? And I'm like, I'm not installing anything. What are you doing? Some of my software wants to update, and it's being rather upfront about it. Anyway, no, go away. Okay, so, and by the way, yes, you can eat a zapote. It's a type of fruit. Anyway, population of Tres Zapotes is hard to say. Part of this is because the city itself wasn't really sort of what we would call bounded the right in a very firm way. It sort of grew and shrank and grew and shrank. It didn't necessarily have the same footprint, and it went through different periods of population growth that built on top of older periods. And one of the things about doing any sort of archaeological work down in Mexico is that it's difficult. The sites are sometimes very hard to get to. It's also very, very hot. And you have all the fun bugs and stuff to worry about, So that stuff. So we don't really know exactly what the population looked like. We can estimate that it was somewhere probably between like the 12 to 15,000 range, but that's kind of an educated guess. We know that early on it wasn't so big, but after about 400 BC or 500 to 400 BC, it really started getting a big push and got pretty high. But what's sort of interesting about Tres Zapotes, and one of the theories about why it hung around so long, is that the social classes inside of the city did not seem to be as dramatically pronounced as either San Lorenzo, Tenochtitlan, or La Venta. So some people hypothesize that Tres Zapotes was a bit more of a kind of an egalitarian culture where everybody was more or less the same. I don't know if I necessarily agree with that very much. We know at periods of time they did have kings. But one of the things that we do know about some later classical Maya cities, especially towards the end of the Mayan arc, is that some of these cities transitioned away from a sole powerful monarch to a more monarch with oligarchy council sort of model. And I think that is likely to be the case here at Tres Zapotes, that they maybe had a bit of a ruling elite that maybe made decisions as a group. I don't know if we could call this democracy because it's really, are you part of the group or not? But it does not seem that the social classes in Tres Zapotes were super duper rigid and really, really far apart. Una torta de tres zapotes, three zapote, one cake. Oh, Vern. All right. So, speaking of governments, what's up with their governments? Well, this is where we're going to talk about the big honking. Oh, I forgot to show you this. My bad. This is the site of Tres Zapotes, and what you can see here is, again, one of these really cool, wicked, tall temples. Nice structures here. You can see big earthwork things here with other stone buildings on top of it. You can see these sort of earthwork hills that are bounded off by stones to create bulwarks, to create either isolated high places or to keep these particular places from falling over. Pretty neat little site. I would, again, love to go see these. You could probably see all of the big Olmec sites in about 3 days. They're not so far away that you could do one and then drive a little bit and spend the night and do one and then drive a little bit and spend the night and do another one. But that would sort of be one of my kind of trips where you spend a night in a different hotel every night. So somebody needs to volunteer to go to Mexico with me once I find a giant pile of money, right? And Figment, it's like, hello. I would love to travel again with What a Figment. We had a great time in both Jordan and Turkey. And next time, if we ever do another nothing but photo share stream, I might share some pictures. Do I need to put this on a billboard for you? There is I guess I should pitch the Discord again. There is a field trip section in the Discord where people can talk about going places. If you want to go join the Discord, we can talk about going places. I'm not hard to convince to go on a trip. The hardest thing to convince me to do is to part with the money that it costs. So we could talk about places. We can even do some preliminary planning if you're interested. I can share all of the different itineraries that I've built. Mac and I probably have... I know for a fact that Mac and I have 2 itineraries. One of them to go to Belize and the eastern side of Guatemala, and then one to go to the western side of Guatemala. I just shared a link right above what you just typed in the chat. So if you go click on that link, you can join the Adventures in History Discord. And anybody can do that and come hang out while not on stream. Is there anything in the southern U.S. that is good to visit other than barbecue? Oh, Moose. I could tell you so many cool places to go in the southern United States. It depends on what you're looking for. If you want to talk about that in the Discord, I would love to tell you all sorts of cool places to go in the south. Guatemala is great. I am now jealous of you. Kyle, you've been all of these places, and it's irking me that I can't go. Anyway, here's a giant head. Olmec head. So what's up with these big honking heads? There are dozens and dozens of these. And, well, here's the thing. We initially were like, what's up with these giant heads? And then people figured out, oh, they're kings. How better to know who the king was than to create a giant stone head of the king? What's up, Cave Geek? Welcome. Mostly looking for barbecue, but if there's people I know that go with me, that's good too. Memphis is good for barbecue. There's good barbecue in the city that I live. How do their lips move? How can I get ahead in life? I was considering using some pun on big giant head. Like incoming message from the big giant head, but I don't know how many people would have gotten that reference. I also wanted to be very careful with the use of the word HEAD because of other not safe for work connotations. I didn't want to make a pun that would be easily perhaps sexually suggestive. So anyway, these are big, and I know it doesn't necessarily look big, but this guy is about 2 meters tall or about 6 feet tall. It's a big honking chunk of rock. Just starting your day. Oh, well, welcome. I'm glad that you chose to look at my ugly mug right off the bat of your day. I hope I'm not turning your breakfast. Hey, Emmy, welcome. Now that we have lots of people in the chat that are streamers, let's do all the streaming shout outs. So again, I'll give the shout out to Art of Lee. Please go check out Art of Lee. He came in with a very lovely raid. He's a great guy. You should absolutely, totally go check out Art of Lee. And we'll do the shout outs. Well, if I can type. Do the type thing. Do the shout out for the Cave Geek. Second dose knocked me out. Oh, man. Your ugly mug is a rather pleasant change. Oh, Cave, I'm sorry that you had a bad reaction to that. Go follow Cave. Cave is an awesome dude. Does artwork of various sorts and occasionally plays video games towards the end of the night. And we'll go say the shout out for Color by Emmy. Go follow Color by Emmy, who is a delightful streamer that does graphic design, sometimes does traditional artwork, and it's cool to hang out with. So go follow all these cool people. Who else am I missing? Anybody? Anybody else in here that does streaming stuff? If you do streaming stuff, share your emotes and let people click on your stuff. And anybody that is streaming that wants to, share social links or what you're working on, anything like that, you just go for it. Just go for it. Do your thing. Okay. All right. So these big, powerful kings. Yeah, sometimes we have these kings in these Olmec cities that are going to be ruling over all of the kingdoms. So there does appear to be some periods of time where particularly powerful kings will rule all of the region that's Olmec, and they'll sort of expand out and take over multiple of the big cities. Sometimes we have different kings ruling in either San Lorenzo or La Venta or Tres Zapotes. Sometimes there are, different configurations of those. But yeah, they carve those big giant heads because that's a great way to let everybody know who's the king. You walk down the street and you go, hey, look, it's the king, because it's like, enormous and you can't deny it. But what this also means is that we have a lot of civic organization. We have government that is centralized enough that we can encourage all of this manpower to go build stuff. Let's not forget that big Native American earth mounds or these humongous buildings or these giant heads, they don't just happen, right? They don't just come out of the ground like, look, I'm a giant head. By the way, did anybody get the reference to incoming message from the big giant head? Anybody get that reference? I'm trying to be pop culturally aware, but that one's a bit old. I don't know how many people know that one. Anyway, so we have a lot of organized labor. We have big palaces for these kings. We have big tombs that get developed with lots of big pieces of cut stone. So we've got big organized government. You recognize it, but you don't remember where it's from. It is from the late 90s, early 2000s TV show Third Rock from the Sun. French Stewart played, all of the characters that were the main characters in the show, John Lithgow and French Stewart. There were, and I can see the guy's name and I can't say his name. He was in a lot of movies that I really like. He's got 3 names and I can't say it. That guy. What's that guy's name? That he was very young in the show, but now he played. Oh gosh, he was in Looper, and he was in Batman, and he was in that Christopher Nolan movie that I'm losing my words for. Good gravy. Joseph Gordon-Levitt. Thank you very much. Yeah, that guy. Anyway, French Stewart played the connective sort of apparatus between the aliens' home world and the aliens on Earth. And when the leader, who was called the Big Giant Head, wanted to send a message down to Earth, French Stewart would freeze and throw up his hands, and he would go, "Incoming message from the Big Giant Head." And that was the way that they knew that they needed to, gather around and listen to the message from the Big Giant Head. Yeah. Inception is the movie that I couldn't say that was a Christopher Nolan movie. I don't know where my mind is. But moving along. What about religion? What's up with the Olmec religion? Well, we know that they are polytheistic. You only remember the Coneheads? I do quite like the Coneheads as well. We know that they are polytheistic because they have lots of these big honkin' giant altars. And again, this is a much larger stone than it might seem. This is another one of these big 2 meter tall, 2 meter wide stones, 6 foot tall, 6 foot wide. And we see a deity here holding a baby. And of course, this particular altar piece has made a lot of people think that the Olmec sacrificed humans. We can't say that they didn't. Later Native American people and Mesoamerican civilizations absolutely sacrificed people, including young children, and lots of blood sacrifice stuff. We don't wholly understand exactly what Olmec religion looked like, but when you have a deity sitting here holding a baby, that looks a bit suspicious. Also, this thing, either sacrifice or please give me a baby prayer altar. It could go either way. It could go either way. How do you know it's a deity? Maybe it's the sign for the OBGYN office. That is a fair assessment. That is absolutely sure. Maybe they were the first obstetricians in the ancient world. That altar piece, by the way, came from La Venta. Again, it's got a lot of cool stuff. So this particular stela is also interesting because what we see here is this honkin' dude, which is a big winged serpent. And if you know anything about Mesoamerican mythology, you will know that the winged serpent god is very much a central figure. This particular image is thought to be the oldest emblematic depiction of a winged serpent that might have existed. Now, of course, we know that we don't have everything from history, but at the moment, this is the oldest one that we have, and it came from, again, La Venta, and is pretty cool stuff. Honestly, archaeologists are too quick to explain things as god or ceremonial. Well, that altar piece came off of a temple, so it was at one time the top of a temple, and it had fallen down the temple and is now at the base of the temple. So temple plus weird depiction thing plus place to put stuff, and I absolutely agree that if a lot of people don't understand what it is, like, what's this dagger? It's all decorated and weird, and some people go, oh, that was clearly a ceremonial dagger. Or was it just a big fancy thing that people like to carry around? You say temple, you say clinic. Prove me wrong. Well, I can say this, and that is if they were doing obstetrics or gynecology from the top of a temple, that was a lot less private than it is now. Not that I know very much about OBGYN stuff because I'm clearly not a lady, but I understand now that they try to at least limit the number of people that are involved in those exams. So doing it on the top of a temple like that is a bit more public. Also, what pregnant woman wants to hike up all of those stairs for a checkup? Fair question. Fair question. Sounds like not a fun time. So they have a pretty organized religion. They pretty clearly had some form of priestly cult. We have found enough different burials that we know that there were different specialized people. So you have the elite that are government class, and you have the elite that are sort of your priestly class. They had different garb. They lived in different parts of the city, fairly close to the temples. So there's also some evidence that people suggest that the monarchs or the kings might have been celebrated as a sort of link between the divine and humanity, which of course is not terribly hard to guess at. This happens in a lot of early cultures. A lot of early kings purposefully link themselves with the divine, especially as their cities are growing to maintain control over a larger population. So that's not outside of the possibility, and I don't really have a problem with them suggesting that. But yeah, the temples are usually some of the biggest and most ornate buildings in any of these cities, and of course they're going to be pretty evident when you go to see them today. I don't know if I can read that one on stream and keep the PG rating, Cave Geek. There'd be lots of kids born on the way up. Yeah, maybe so. Oh, those human kings, right? All right, let's talk about some inventions that they came up with, some cool things that are big on the idea. And we're going to get to Stone Temple Petroglyphs, our cool title. So here we go. I'm going to say it. Here we are. Here is a very literal selection of Stone Temple Petroglyphs. So what we are looking at here is a big honkin' slab of rock.
I'm Spartacus!
I'm Spartacus.
I'm Spartacus! I'm Spartacus!
I'm Spartacus.
I'm Spartacus! I'm Spartacus! I'm Spartacus!
Fit, thank you so much. Thank you so much for that sub. Let me get back over here. Thank you for that. Much appreciated. Stone Temple Petroglyphs was the name of your high school punk band? I agree. If you put them all together, they can tell you the location of the One Piece. Oh, but only after like 2,000 episodes, right? Okay, so what we're looking at here is Olmec writing. And this is a writing that was done in hieroglyphic form. And you can see here that it's got some identifiable little images. Like you've got a nice little jaguar right here. You've got a guy's face down here. You have what might be a monkey right here. So these are writing symbols. This is the oldest writing. You like the snake in the top left. This guy up here? Yeah. With that nice infinity symbol. We don't know if that was there or not. These are... These circles and lines are numerical. Almost certainly. I don't remember what all of the additions are, but the circles have a certain amount of numerical value, and the lines do as well. I cannot transcribe those. I sort of wish I could, but I don't know everything. So anyway, you can see how big this place is, or this piece of stone is. It's probably somewhere 2.5 meters tall, 10, 12 feet tall. Big honking chunk of stone with all sorts of stuff on it. Because they figured out writing, and this is a big advancement. They're the first people in the Americas that come up with an organized system of writing. They're also going to start off the Mesoamerican love of calendars. If you know anything about the Aztec and the Maya, you'll know that they both have very, very accurate, astronomically based solar calendars. the Olmec are going to be the ones that get that ball rolling. And what's interesting about the Olmec calendars is that because so much of the preparation of a calendar is mathematic, that they also invent quite a few mathematical concepts. Is the calendar app on a tablet? Oh, lovely. You'd love to see the progression of that writing system. Figment, they have a lot of papers that you can read where they are trying to decipher some of this stuff. They have some of it figured out. They have the mathematical system figured out. They don't know 100% of all of the symbols yet. There aren't an amazingly wide array of pieces of examples of this stuff, and some people debate whether some things are pictograms or hieroglyphs, and if you can't tell if it's a picture that's supposed to depict thing or if it's a hieroglyph that's supposed to depict a sound, of course you know how hard it is to figure out what's supposed to be what. So they're working on that stuff, but I don't know if there is a sort of a harmonized arc that can take you from, say, Olmec writing all the way through to Maya writing. That would be really neat. And I have unfortunately not done enough digging in that area to completely know. If we only had a Rosetta Stone, right? You need to get back into reading academic things. I have a limited amount of time that I can read academic things. And I partially do it because one of my jobs is to keep up with what history is and the developments in history so that I can teach it. Digging, I see what you did there. But I don't do it as much as I would like to. Unfortunately, right now, most of my academic reading is coming from this sociology degree, and I will be glad to be done with this sociology degree so that I can go back and read all of the primary sources, because one of the things that I have found in the particular degree that I'm obtaining is that they mention primary sources, and you might get an excerpt that's, 3 or 4 pages of it, but they're referencing something that's an entire book, and they go, okay, this guy comes up with this theory, and here's the book, here's an excerpt, moving along. And I go, I want to read the book! And they're like, we don't have time to read the book! And so I have a list of books that I need to read that are primary sociological sources, and that's going to probably dominate my world for about a year and a half or two. Yeah, give me the whole thing. I don't need what you think it means. I want to read what the person wrote, right? I can analyze a primary source. It's kind of one of my things. Just watch the movie. There aren't too many sociology books that get turned into movies, Kyle. I don't think it's a very sexy subject when it comes to Hollywood. They're probably not going to be too excited about it. Anyway, one more thing, though. In the process of creating this solar calendar, Olmec people developed the mathematical use of zero. And some people are like, who gives a crap? Zero is nothing, right? But the mathematical concept of zero is actually a fairly substantial mathematical leap. So these guys are pretty advanced when it comes to the math stuff. The softest of sciences. Please don't squeeze the sociology. Sure, you can read every book if you want. It'll only take 20 years to get the degree finished. Bring the real science. Tea and no tea. I have tea. It's going a bit cold, so... alas. Anyway, so the Maya people are going to end up sort of coming around at the middle of this Olmec period, and for a little while the Maya people are going to mostly be a little bit further south. Where's my map? Down here in what is Guatemala. But so the Olmec are going to have their sort of unbroken reign of big dominant power from about 1200 BC until about 400 BC. And at that time, there's going to be a bit of a falling out, and the Olmec culture is going to give way to several different groups, including one that is going to pick up the torch and begin sort of its rise to fame, and that is the Maya people. Now, we are not going all the way through Mayan history tonight because we don't have time to, What we are going to do, though, is talk specifically about the formative period of the Maya. We've done a viewer request stream on the Mayan people before, and one of the things that I breezed over very quickly was what we call Preclassic Maya. So in the stream that we were talking about, we were mostly talking about like the really big cities and the really cool things and how everything showed up and was really fancy and everything was already there when we started talking about it. So we skipped over the formative period, and that's what I want to talk about for a little bit, and then we'll wrap up with a discussion of a really powerful city-state that ends up taking over a lot of these places called Teotihuacan. The only science I know is baking and magic. Please don't make me endure more. Should introduce you to weird science. Was Blender before or after Maya? I don't know. I could not say so. All right, so who are the Maya? What's up with them? As the Olmec are sort of moving towards dissolution, the Maya are sort of coming up in the world. And we know that the Maya originally were in the orbit of the Olmec. So the Olmec civilization was really dominant in the region. And even though it was a few hundred miles from where the Maya people are going to really get their start down here in the southern part of Guatemala, this region right here was so culturally advanced that it had these big sort of cultural waves of gravity that expanded out from it. So if you were in any of this region within probably 400 or 500 miles of the Olmec civilization, you were going to feel some of those effects. You're going to get luxury items into your very small village that would be commonplace items in Olmec cities. You're going to see trade moving out of that area. You're going to see people moving around. The religious ideas of the Olmec people are going to spread out into the surrounding areas. The concepts of government and as sports ball are going to move out, that kind of stuff. Olmec, is that a new Gundam? I don't know, but if it was, I'd put it together on stream. Hey, Yatuna, what's up? Welcome. If it's weird, I'm in. In return, I'll introduce you to weird ancient laws that make you question humanity until you find modern equivalents and you realize that nothing has changed. Just the and the fancy tools that we have, right? People are still people. Let's not forget that. All right, so when we talk about the Maya, again, they're in this orbit of the Olmec. They're going to be trading with the Olmec, and as the Olmec are going to sort of be on their decline, on the other side of their zenith, you're going to start seeing the region of South Guatemala sort of come up, and the Maya begin building bigger cities. And their first really sort of established city, what you might, I don't know if I want to even say that. Let's just talk about Kamanalhuyu. Kamanalhuyu. You're like, what? What are you going to do to me? Kamanalhuyu. Anyway, this was, if not the first big organized city of the Maya, it was definitely the most important organized city of the early Preclassic Maya people. And Kamanalhuyu is currently located under what is Guatemala City today, which is right here. And the remains of the city are unfortunately partially destroyed. The excavation work for a lot of this stuff started in the 1900s, early 1900s, and continued for a couple of decades. But, well, the thing about cities is that they keep growing. Let's talk about Kamanal, baby. Let's talk about who, you, and me. Everything's Kamanapple-Huyu. Kamanalhuyu, gotta love it. So, anyway, the footprint of the ancient city is now under various portions of Guatemala City, including residential areas, some factory areas, and unfortunately, that means that a lot of the ancient city is probably destroyed beyond repair or recovery. And what that means is we are losing a lot of the knowledge that we could know about Kamen Huyu because of modern expansion. We really don't know how big the ancient city was because we don't know how far it expanded under the modern footprint of Guatemala City. And in Guatemala, volcanoes are everywhere. That's true. Vengeful spirits, I don't know. I don't know how or where I stand on the vengeful spirit potential. So the ancient city of Kamen Huyu was on a big open plain, which is one of the reasons why there's a nice sized city now in the area, because it's, big open plain. It had a lot of good farmland there. Vengeful spirits are fascinating, though. They are, but I don't know if they exist. Hey, Foggage, welcome. What Ankh-Morpork was built on mostly Ankh-Morpork? Yeah, because the city just kept sinking down into the muck. And, that's why if you start digging around under the city, you get into these whole catacomb sort of things. There are several stories about what goes on under Ankh-Morpork, and you don't want to do that. And you especially don't want to fall into the river Ankh, because it's almost an archaeological dig in itself, because it's not really liquid. Ankh-Morpork, by the way, is the sort of central / capital city of Discworld, which is Terry Pratchett's wonderful series of fantasy fiction stuff. Love Terry Pratchett. And some of the better books are set in Ankh-Morpork. My favorite of all Terry Pratchett books is Night Watch, which is set in Ankh-Morpork. Of course, vengeful spirits exist. What do you think Paradox Moose is? Well, that would explain how he can type in all of the different Twitch channels at the same time. He is literally the ghost in the machine. So Paradox is plugged in, and that image that we see during his podcast is a very elaborate digital construction. Spoilers. He can see the code of the Matrix. All right. Anyway, Kamen Huyu was originally settled as a very small village back about 1200 BC. After about 900 BC, it's going to spike in population. By the time we get to about 400 BC, so at the collapse of the Olmec, or the dissolution of the Olmec cities, Kamen Huyu is really, really big, and it has a very dense center of the city. It's got a really big population, and Kamen Huyu is going to continue to be an important Mayan city all the way up through 1200 AD. So the span of Kamen Huyu as an important important civic center is going to last for 2,400 years. Hold a spot for making money because it got you into the Discworld series. Moist von Litvig is an amazing character. I love all of his books. Making Money is... I don't know if that one is my favorite. Oh man, I don't... Of the Moist von Litvig series, though. I really wish there were more of them. I could have read 10 more Moist von Litvig stories. For those of you that are not familiar with the Discworld world, so Going Postal and Raising Steam are the other two. Basically, Moist von Litvig is a con man, and the people of Discworld are sort of stuck in a late Renaissance setting, and Moist von Litvig gets chosen by the patrician of the city Ankh-Morpork basically to be the Industrial Revolution. So first he ends up creating a post office, and then creates what is effectively a telegram. Then he creates paper money, and he also creates steam engines. Well, he doesn't physically create them. He oversees the implementation of all of these things. He's a great character. And remember, he's a con man, so there's a lot of good poking at industrialization through his character. I say let the spirits go to their way. They've already lived. They don't make them stay longer. If you want vengeance to happen, go seek the deities that concern themselves with protecting the unfortunate in society. They'll get the job done. Just kind of curse the people that get the attention. You know, you take that lead plate and you inscribe the curse on it, and then you roll it up and you stick a big nail through it, and you go bury that at the corner of somebody's house. And that's how you get back at somebody. That's how you curse them. I read your thesis. I enjoyed the devil out of that. Anyway, Kamanalhuyu is a pretty big city. Again, it's got a 2,400-year run of being a very important civic center for the Mayan world. And one of the big things that they do because of all of these volcanoes is obsidian. And obsidian, of course, is a black rock that flakes very easy. And you can do a lot of stuff with it. You can make blades out of it. You can make artifacts out of it. You can use obsidian to get a bit of a sheen and make a mirror out of it, which is one of the things that gets spread around. Mirrors are sort of a fancy luxury item that were actually really popular in the Olmec world that are pretty clearly going to be transposed into the Mayan world as a sort of continuation of luxury. So, pretty cool stuff. Let me show you some pictures. You can still go see some of the remains of Kamanalhuyu. There are some of the remains that are preserved here under this nice big awning, which is actually not me being sarcastic. This is actually a very nice awning. And some of it is open air. You can go walk around in it. But again, this is very close to modern Guatemala City, so a lot of the ancient city is not visible anymore. Do we know who invented mirror technology? We have mirrors going way back in time. Some of the earliest metal artifacts that we have from places like Jordan or the Jordan River Valley are mirrors, and they're pieces of either copper that have been polished a lot to make a reflective surface or semi-reflective surface, and there are those that date probably back, and this is a guess, probably 8 or 9,000 BC. Someone who likes silver. So the problem with silver in the ancient world is that it was difficult to find in a natural state. It was almost always found in natural alloys or in the presence of other impurities. So while silver was a pretty big deal later on, it took a long time for ancient people to figure out how to extract silver. For those of you that are hanging around and might be interested, one of our viewer request streams of the past was the history of metallurgy. And we went through all of the old ancient metals and how they were made, so you can go back and check that one out. I remember a mirror in the shape of an ankh. It was supposed to be a pun since ankh also means mirror. There we go. Big deal. You have dishes in the sink that date back way longer than that. Do your dishes, Gabe. Do your dishes. Okay, so there's Kamanalhuyu. Around the 900 or so mark, did you cover Man of War in the history of metal? This is metallurgy, not the history of metal. We have not done the history of metal music. There is an expansion of Preclassic Maya away from the coastline of Guatemala and up into the highlands of Guatemala. And this is where you're going to start seeing some of the big cities that we will talk about in later periods of time. Places like Tikal, which is situated right about here. Some of the big cities that are over in Belize. But right around here in what's called, there's a big basin right here. Let me see if it's, is it going to show me if I zoom in here? No. Anyway, so you can see this nice depression in the ground right here. Right around here, you're going to see several big cities that begin popping up. Tikal, Calakmul is another one, but the sort of big one is a place called El Mirador. El Mirador. So, what about this place? So, this is one of the largest Maya sites ever. And it is huge. The site itself is about 10 square miles. It has thousands of buildings in it. So this is actually a reference to mirror. So our word in English, mirror, comes from the old Latin, which gets translated into Spanish as mirar, which means to look. Are you Spanishing a native language? So no. Mirador. No. That's actually, it's called that in Spanish today. It's the lookout. And if you Google this, there's one particular big temple that's kind of poking out above the treetops that people go climb up on. The issue with El Mirador is that it's because it's so big, a lot of it is not preserved, and a lot of it is still in fairly bad shape, like this temple here, which has a whole bunch of stuff growing on it, and you can see that it's not necessarily in good working order. I mean, you could climb up that, and it's got some scaffolding to hold it up, but it's not necessarily as easy. So again, the word mirror that we use, mirror, comes from the same Latin word as mirar, which is Spanish for to look, and El Mirador is the lookout, or the lookout point. So if you want to go Google El Mirador, you're going to see these pictures of this big temple that poke out of the top of the forest. It actually got some trees growing on top of it. But anyway, this is in a place called El Petén. There's a Petén Basin, which is the geographical area that I was talking about, that nice sort of hollowed out geographical area in Guatemala. And El Mirador is huge. It is a really big site for a very, very long time. It's going to start off probably, like I said, in right around the 1,000 or so range, or maybe the 900 range. It's going to hit the real big stride or growth right around 300 BC. But it's going to be populated all the way until the 900s AD, so another 1,000 years past that plus. It's a big site with a lot of important stuff, still in the process of being reclaimed from the jungle. The problem with a lot of these big temples is that the jungle, as I showed you, has literally grown on top of the temples. So you have to be very careful if you're trying to clear these. You can't necessarily just go pull up some of these trees and start lopping stuff down, because the root systems are down into the cracks in the pyramids, and you can actually do a lot of damage if you just start going and chopping stuff off. Some of them are not structurally sound, so the tree systems and the root systems that are on top of them are actually holding them together. Again, I can show you this picture that I was just... Oh, nope. I've switched over to Teotihuacan. So you can see here that they've got scaffolding and they're trying to clear this stuff out, but it's a painstaking process. It is very, very slow, and unfortunately, there is not an overwhelmingly large amount of money being put towards things like recovering El Mirador from the Guatemalan jungle. The amount of money that Guatemala puts into recovering sites is not as much money as they put into maintaining existing sites, especially places like Tikal, which is a much later Maya city that becomes really, really big. Also where they filmed Star Wars. So if you know anything about Yavin 4, the big temples at Yavin 4 are a Mayan city called Tikal. That's not a pyramid. This is a pyramid. Crocodile Dundee. So those pyramids weren't pyramids. This is a pyramid. This is the last thing that we'll talk about tonight. And it is a city-state called Teotihuacan. And Teotihuacan is huge. So these little dots down here are humans. This is sort of known as the Causeway of the Dead. This big monstrosity of a temple down here is called the Pyramid of the Moon. It's not a pyramid, it's a multi-level marketing scheme. Are you quoting It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia? Because if so, I appreciate that so much. What sort of sites in the U.S. are similarly neglected? Quite a bit, unfortunately. Foggage, the issue that the United States has is that there is a political interest in preserving history, but only as far as the next election cycle. And history gets neglected in a lot of places in the United States. There are places that could be very interesting and are pretty important that don't get a lot of love. And the United States hasn't really cared a lot about preserving a lot of this stuff until like the 1930s and 40s. So a lot of the stuff that, and I've just realized that I'm just talking here and I'm not even talking about Teotihuacan. If you're in a more rural state, the chances of natural historical sites being lost are pretty high. If you live in a big state that has a lot of tax revenue, that has something that is, like Philadelphia, right? You're not going to go to Constitution Hall and find it all falling apart. But there are places in a lot of the states that just don't get the same amount of love. And part of the reason is because they're not as high profile, but that doesn't mean that they can't be good learning tools, right? I wish the United States would care a lot more about the historical things that are here. Part of the issue with preserving natural history, not natural history. Natural history is like mountains. I mean, I guess it sort of overlaps. But part of the problem with maintaining ancient history in the United States is that a lot of the stuff that is out there is on private land, and land rights in America are very, very complicated. I know for a fact that there are hundreds and hundreds of Native American mounds that have been destroyed. I've been to several that used to be originally, 50 to 70 to 100 feet tall that are now like 3 or 4 feet tall, and they're in the middle of a field because during various parts of our history, people just decided, I don't want a big Native American mound on my property. I want a field that I can use to plant stuff. So they pulled it all down. Or another thing that happens a lot, especially in the 1800s and early 1900s in America, when we're building stuff like early bridges or railroad trestles, they're like, we need fill dirt, and like, look, there's a big Native American mound, just load it up. And there are a lot of Native American mounds that are now fill for bridges. Happens all the time. Is it huge, or they're just really tiny humans? No, it's honking huge. Teotihuacan is huge. Figment volunteers to go there as well. Downtown Los Angeles is becoming similarly neglected. Wow. It's actually a center for ants. And people have to want to preserve a thing and fight against the interest of companies and sometimes municipalities. Also true. Better hope there's no oil beneath those sites. Also true. If not, we'll just go frack it all up. And I can use that on Twitch because that's an actual verb now. Anyway. Zoolander. What is this? A center for ants? Anyway, Teotihuacan. Let me go back. Big honkin' city. So why am I talking about this after I'm talking about the pre-classic Maya? So here's the thing about Teotihuacan. It's a big city, and we don't really know who the people were that initially started it. This is another one of those cities that is sort of shrouded in history mystery. There are a lot of different people that want to claim sort of cultural ownership of Teotihuacan. There are a lot of people that argue, oh, this is Maya city originally, or no, it was a Toltec city, or no, it was a Mixtec city, or it was a Zapotec city, and everybody's arguing over who is actually there. And some people that are coming out in a more modern, less quasi-territorial view are putting forward the idea that Teotihuacan might have just started off as a multicultural place where a lot of different people met up to trade, and then over time became just the dominant place where everybody went and people just started living there, which sounds perfectly plausible. By about 200 BC, Teotihuacan is going to have significant levels of construction being done. You're going to start seeing some early temple sites, some early government sites. Look for the Rosetta Stone there. Teotihuacan is going to have a very steady and becomes a very significant growth in population size and in influence. Teotihuacan becomes the center of a later empire that conquers a lot of the Maya cities. But Teotihuacan becomes the largest city in North America by about the turn of the early AD period. It has a population of somewhere around 125,000 people. The site itself is about 8 square miles and has a farming area that surrounds it that's about another 40. It's a big, big city. To put that into perspective, when it had 125,000 people, that would have made it in the top 10 biggest cities on Earth. And I'll come back to, again, this is why I really hate the idea of people teaching history that the Europeans just showed up and wiped out dinky little native peoples. That is not what happened. These people had advanced cultures. They had enormous cities. They had socialized, stratified classes inside of their cities. They had governments. They had written language. They had mathematics. They just didn't have guns. And they also didn't have native immunity to European diseases. It's not like the Spanish and the Portuguese came over and found nobody here except for people rubbing sticks together. Not any offense to people rubbing sticks together, but that's unfortunately the way that history gets taught a lot. Not that they wiped out actual civilized groups of people. Just saying, a little bit of a chip on my shoulder about how that history was taught to me as a growing up kid. You may have missed my earlier question. You don't think you missed the answer. What differentiates Preclassic Maya and the subsequent Classic Maya? The difference is that Preclassic Maya is going to be a little bit different in all of the areas that you go. Classical Maya is going to be technologically more advanced. They're going to have standardized their writing system. They're going to have standardized their pottery making, their religion. They're going to begin codifying their religion. Instead of having regional variants in myths, you're going to have one central myth that everybody follows that you can read on the temples. You're going to start seeing the populations increase really, really rapidly. So pre-classical is like getting your stuff in elements. You know, like we've got elements of what's going to be our thing. We've got one area that has a really good handle on the writing, and we've got this other area that's really good handle on the pottery stuff, and we've got a religious center. But when you get to the classic Maya world, everything becomes sort of a level playing field, no pun intended. And you go to any Mayan site, and it's the same. You know, you see the same building sizes and the same architectural styles. They're speaking the same language. They're telling the same stories. They're writing in the same way. They're dressing in the same way. Their stuff becomes more homogenized is what I'm trying to get at. So that's the difference. If there were only a prime directive, right? They died because they didn't have 5G, or did they die because of 5G? They didn't die because of 5G. Nobody dies because of 5G unless you fall off of a 5G tower or a 5G tower falls on you. Okie dokie. So Teotihuacan is going to be a big deal. We will revisit this area in later periods. We will come back to North America and talk about North American cultures and kingdoms again. But I did want to end on sort of a high note with this guy that's going to be a big powerhouse in the future. Teotihuacan. Cool stuff. I'd love to go there. But that's pretty much everywhere, right? I want to go where the history is. Anyway. Alrighty then. He just can't wait. I can't. Oh, Foggage. I see what you did there. I appreciate that. I see what you did there. All right, ladies and gents. So that wraps up what I had planned for tonight. But do we have any questions about any of that stuff? Anybody have? Just can't wait to see things. I was talking to a buddy just yesterday about trying to go over the summer to see some cool Native American mounds. And I know everybody gets really excited, like, Jay's talking about mounds again. Why don't you just shut up about the mounds? I like that stuff. Don't hate on me. I'm also trying to figure out how I could stream from a site. It's like do live streaming from an archaeological site or do live streaming from a Native American mound. So that would be cool. What is my least favorite era of history? That's an interesting question. That's a hard thing to answer. I don't like. Well, it's not like that I don't like something. It's just like sometimes I don't want to read about it. If you laid out all of the history books in the world in front of me and gave me the option to pick from them, I would eventually read them all because I just love history. But the ones that I would read last would be things like 1800s British and Dutch trade empires, early 13, 14, 1500s Russian history, Gilded Age United States, like that period of time between about 1870 and 1900. That's just not my favorite time of history. Ship money. I told you not to take that. Moose does that all the time, though. Moose will throw out viewer request things. You didn't have a choice, alas. I did. Anyway, that's a bit of an inside joke. And I would do viewer request on all of that stuff. And probably end up having a better time than I would think doing it. It's just not what I would necessarily go for initially. It's not really my world. They denied me a self-study because he wanted me to do ship money because he only had 2 other students and needed 3. Oh, fun times. This is a particular class in our history degree that Figment got stuck in that I had no interest in. You're going to do a class on megaliths? Oh, that would have been awesome. Baalbek, that would have been friggin' cool. Yeah, I would have totally done a class on that. All right, ladies and gents. Anybody want to do stream redemptions? Anybody want to redeem some points? Anybody want to spend your adventure points and see what's going on in the world? Or anybody have any more questions? I do have a little bit of show and tell that I can show and tell. It's National Jelly Beans Day. I did not know that. I don't know how any of it works. So below your chat window, you should see a picture of the adventure hat. And it should say adventure points. And if you click on that, it will pop up a big list of things. And you can spend adventure points to do various things in the chat. And I have customized a lot of those. And like you can ask for a rank 3 things, favorite candy. Oh, that's going to be really, really easy. Number 1 favorite candy ever, Cadbury cream eggs. Love them. Number 2, the Zero candy bar. I love Zero candy bars. They are my favorite candy bar by leaps and bounds. And now number 3, oh man, I'm going to have to be careful. Candy, favorite candy. Oh man, I'm going to have to be really, really careful here. I'm going to have to go with a Reese's. I like Reese's. The peanut butter chocolate mix. Gotta love it, man. One of my favorite things. Okay, so do an impression. Captain Picard ordering Taco Bell. Got to think about what he would order. What would Captain Picard order? So you get the person's like, "How can I Taco Bell? Can I take your order?" And he goes, "Number 1." And like, "Pardon?" Like, "Number 1, make it so." So we don't have a number 1 here. So then I'll have a Nachos Bel Grande and one of those blue Mountain Dews. So there you go. Never had a Zero Bar. Oh man, they're so good. Cadbury cream eggs. What era? When did it go wrong? I'll take any Cadbury cream egg. I know that you hate the new ones. I really don't mind the new ones. I know that they're not as good as the old ones, but you can't get the old ones. You're gonna have to get over it. Favorite tunes. Okay, Figment, you're going to have to narrow that one down a little bit, because I'm going to need like tombs that I've been to, or tombs that still exist, or tombs that have existed that no longer exist. You need to give me a little bit more of a narrow scope. Summon the adventure hat. So you're going to need to summon the opinion hat if you want an opinion like that. Why is it Mounds my favorite candy? So okay, so I'll tell you why Mounds aren't my favorite candy. They're super freaking inconsistent. Sometimes you pick up a Mounds and you bite into it, and it's nice and uniformly creamy all the way through the coconut part. Other times you pick up a Mounds and you bite into it, and it's grainy as heck. And it's a mess on the inside. And I don't know if it dries out through the chocolate or what. But sometimes you bite into a Mounds and it's like biting into a stack of hay that's covered in chocolate. And I don't want that stuff in my teeth. It's just not my favorite thing. Coconut is not necessarily on my favorite list of things. I mean, I'll eat it, but it's not like my top things. But, you know, for real, that's why Mounds aren't my favorite. Just to be honest. All right, what did I miss here? White chocolate and nougat? Oh, yes. I love Zero Bars. Cadbury cream eggs, Zero candy bar. I'm smashing jelly beans. Reese's, yes, love Reese's. Gordita. Gordita, beef, hot. Got Reese's Pieces eggs. I've seen those and I quite like them. Adventure. What are the important... I have the important questions here. Who is Batman?
I'm Batman.
The Great Pyramids? Yeah. Did I skip over Vern's redemption on accident? Did I skip over Vern's redemption on accident? I don't know. What did Vern redeem? Rank 3 things. Do the impression. Oh! Favorite random history fact. Mesoamerica. Somewhere in Mesoamerica. Mesoamerican history fact that I haven't already talked about. Oh, here's a fun one. In later cultures, Mesoamerican cultures, when you played the sports ball game, if you lost, you got sacrificed to the gods. So it was literally deathmatch. Yeah. 2 teams enter, 1 team leaves. So, well, there you go. But they're mounds. I am obsessed with mounds. Tombs that you would hop into a time machine to see when they were freshly completed. Oh, this is pretty easy, actually. Number 1 got to be Tomb of Alexander the Great in Alexandria. And the reason I want to see it is because I want to see it where it is, and then I can go back to the modern day future and go find it, and then we can find Alexander's tomb. Pretty cool stuff, right? That's an easy one. Number 2, Tomb of Cyrus the Great. Because that would be freaking honking awesome. The thing that is there now is not the original one. It was almost clearly, certainly destroyed back in ancient times and then kind of rebuilt and approximated. It probably doesn't actually look like what it did now. And number 3, I'm going to put in here because it's a bit of an inside joke. But in Turkey, Figment and another one of my colleagues and I found a tumulus and then spent about an hour and a half climbing around in it. And I would love to go see that thing back when it was first built and see what kind of stuff was inside of it so that I could match that memory up with the memory of our trip there. That digging around in that tumulus was one of my favorite things that we did on that trip. Really cool stuff. How important do you think junkyards and landfills will be to future archaeologists? Tuna, I can't even explain to you how important those things are going to be. I cannot tell you how much. But we love, as archaeologists, we love finding pits full of junk. One of the most important document finds in archaeological history is at a place called Oxyrhynchus in Egypt. And the reason it's so important is because it was basically this giant dump where everybody in the city threw their old papyrus. And we have found thousands and thousands and thousands of documents in the Oxyrhynchus collection, and people are still digging through it today, including some of the oldest passages of the Christian Bible, really old Roman laws that we don't have copies of anywhere else. It's friggin' cool stuff, man. Garbage dumps are awesome. Completely unrelated, does anyone want puppy pics? Your dog had babies. Pistol Pete, share that stuff on the Discord. Yeah, man, absolutely. People love puppies. Have so much respect for your gods if you sacrifice the losers to them. Yeah, really. He's just like, you're gonna go, so better play well. The opinion hat comes back. Stargate's historical modern cultures on other planets. I don't know what I'm supposed to say about that, Foggage. Am I supposed to say that I don't think that Stargate after the original movie was very good? I know that the TV show had a lot of love, and for the first couple of seasons it was okay. But if you're talking about the concept that some ancient aliens brought their culture to America, or I'm sorry, to the Earth, and then people copied those. That's, I mean, I don't buy in with the ancient alien stuff very much. I think the idea is neat. Shut your mouth. I don't like the shows that. Okay, so for like the first Stargate show, like the actual first Stargate show, had about 2, maybe 2.5 seasons of really good stuff. And then it just went buck wild. It's like they decided we're not really going to pay attention to stuff. We're not going to worry about continuity anymore. We're just going to go have all sorts of fun on all sorts of planets. We're going to find Stargates everywhere. The plot's not going to make any sense anymore. And then we're going to spin off to Atlantis, and that was okay very briefly, but then that just went sort of off the wall. I respect the set design. I think that the acting was usually okay. I liked I think that for the budget that they had with both Stargate and Stargate Atlantis, they made a lot of really good decisions cinematographically. I like the fact that they were able to pull off a lot of stuff that they did with early CG work. As a show, you know, as the production of making the show, it wasn't a bad show, but the writers just, I don't know what happened. Like they just wrote that show off the rails. I don't really, I don't think I ever watched the last maybe season or maybe last 2 seasons, because it just didn't catch me anymore. They started changing characters and killing people off that I really liked, and it spun out of control. Cave, if we can't be friends anymore, I apologize. It's like preserved Egyptian culture. No, it's modern. So, yeah, the whole idea that ancient people had to rely on some external form of knowledge is, to me, very insulting to ancient people. One of the things that I preach a lot when I teach history classes is that that one of the things people tend to do with historical figures and people of the past is look down on them because they didn't have the same level of technology that we do. But what that does is neglects the fact that their brains work the same way that our brains do, right? So they had the same number of chromosomes that we do. They have the same number of neurons in their brains and the attempts and the capability of making leaps of imagination that we do. They were just as smart as we were. Just because they can't build a car or they can't build a laptop doesn't mean that they're dumb. They were ingenuity-based people. They came up with really crazy ideas on how to solve their problems. They were able to live in habitats that we would die in today because they came up with stuff. Like if we took the average Egyptian person and run them out into the middle of the desert and drop them off, they would survive a heck of a lot longer than I would. Right? Partially because I would burn to a crisp at about 5 minutes, but also they understood how to live in that scenario and I don't. They had a lot more ingenuity towards that set of skills that I don't. If we tried to build a pyramid today, it would cost billions of dollars and it would take, 50 years to build because of all of the crazy stuff that we would have to go into. And we have modern technology, and they built that stuff back then without modern technology, and they didn't need aliens to do it. So I don't like the ancient aliens concept at all. We can be friends, but you might send me out on covert ops without backup. Oh, no. They could probably do more stuff without mass-produced tech. Right. They could do the same sort of things that we do, but we just have fancy little toys that do it. Just because they're old in a world with growing technology means they don't have builders and thinkers. Right. You can't even build a toaster. I couldn't build a toaster. What technology would we have if they didn't start us off somewhere? Bingo. Have you ever imagined how much human beings have learned and forgotten in the short history of man? Lots. I know how much I've forgotten even in my life, and that's scary. Don't get me started on the libraries we have lost. Yeah. Why would you hurt me this way? Pour one out for my Alexandria homies. Yep. Okay. Anybody else have questions or comments? Otherwise, we is about to do a raid. Have you ever seen the TED Talk where the guy tried to build a toaster from scratch, like mining the ore for metal? No, I haven't. But that's actually a fairly interesting concept. What's the most important forgotten technology? That's an interesting question. I've never considered that. There was a plant I don't know if this is the most important, it's just one that comes to mind. There was a plant in Roman times that was apparently used as a cure-all. It basically would cure everything. But it was so popular that the people of the time actually ran it into extinction because it was just so popular. So that's pretty important stuff. For a long time, people were like, we don't know how they built the pyramids, but we've sort of pretty much figured that out. Boat shoes? What's next week's stream? That's a question I don't know yet, Kyle. I have to sit down over the weekend and plan the next arc. If I had to guess, it would be Han Dynasty China from about 1 AD to 100 AD. I've decided that the phases need to get cut down. Instead of being 200 years, they need to be 100 years. So I know that we'll be doing Han Dynasty pretty soon. I don't know if that's necessarily going to be first, but we need to cover Wang Mong and the Shin Dynasty, that rebellion that lasts from 9 to 23. Then we need to pick up several other rebellions in the Han Dynasty. We need to expand them out west and let them take over all that territory in the Tibetan Plateau and get connected up with all of the big fun Silk Road stuff that goes on. Might be Han Dynasty. I don't know for certain yet, though. I have to plan the entire next phase. I set those out from the beginning and date them and organize them from the beginning to the end. And then sometimes I find out that I need to insert streams because I've left stuff out. Like the last 2 streams, I realized, hey, I haven't done Mesoamerica or American cultures pretty much at all. So I had to sneak that stuff in. Alrighty. But I do know that on Tuesday we will be doing a viewer request stream on famous Florentines, people that were born in Florence. And I'm being very strict with that. I'm going to say that you had to be born in Florence and you had to live there for at least 10 years of your life for you to count as a Florentine. So if you were not born in Florence, if you're born somewhere else and then moved to Florence, you don't count. So I'm being very, very strict and regimented. Otherwise, we'd be here all night. You've got an ex-mother-in-law, a weaver who owns sheep. She takes it sunlight, grass, sheep, fleece, yarn, fabric, clothing. Oh, yeah, see, that's cool. That's the stuff that's lost. Like, a lot of people don't do that anymore. And there's innumerable like baking techniques, and you've seen the stuff in Japan, like the people that make soba noodles by hand, and that's a dying art. A lot of the old traditional ways of making food or making clothing, it's stuff that we could still mimic, but the quality that they could produce with handmade goods is not something that we could mimic. We maybe know the procedure, but the skill that's involved is something that we've lost. And there is a lot of that in history and in culture. People don't always preserve things as best. You get written descriptions, but something that I've learned. Before my dad's mother passed away, we wrote down a lot of her recipes. We sat down with my grandmother and we wrote down all of her recipes. Like everything that you know how to cook. Let's write it all down. And we have a cookbook that's actually my grandmother's recipes. And I started trying to make those, and I realized really quick, I can't make it the same way. I can follow the same instructions, but it's not the same because my grandmother had a level of cooking skill that I don't have. And I have had to figure a lot of that stuff back out. I've had to change a lot of the recipes because it was pretty clear that at some points she was just suggesting like it's probably about this much, and no, it wasn't that much. It's actually a little bit less or a little bit more. And so I can't tell you how many different things of hers that I've made dozens of times to get back to where she actually was. So that's the sort of stuff that we've lost a lot of. Thanks for the education and entertaining stream. Oh, thanks, man. No problem. You don't want to make soba noodles. You want to build websites. I could help you with that if you want. 50 years in the future, a stick of butter. What kind of stick? What do you mean? A pinch of salt, a handful of flour. Right, that kind of stuff. All right, ladies and gents, I think it is time to go raid. Our viewership is dropping, so I think we need to go while we have everybody with us. So thank you all so much for hanging out. If you will, just hang around with me just a little bit more while we go do a raid. I think we are going to go raid Jay Axer because he raided us last week, and we have not raided him in a while. I don't know if I have actually ever raided Jay, but Jay is a great artist. He works for Bethesda. Not Bethesda. He works for Blizzard. Good gracious, that other big thing. So if you've ever heard of Hearthstone or know anything about Hearthstone, the game, he's one of the guys that works on the art for Hearthstone. Jay's a pretty big deal, and he has been very supportive of the stream here and is just a great guy. So we are going to go raid Jay Axer. If you will, when we get to Jay's room, our battle cry is adventure. And you can add exclamations or caps if you would like. But then just throw all those super fancy and lovely adventure hats into the chat if you got them. Those cool emotes that look like the adventure hat. Otherwise, thank you all so very, very much for hanging out. I've really enjoyed tonight. We had a good chat. We've got a lot of good talk and back and forth. I will be back maybe this weekend doing model building stuff. I'm not sure. I've got a lot of stuff that I need to do this weekend, but we will see. Otherwise, I will see all of you Tuesday night, 1900 Central Standard Time, and we'll be talking about famous people from Florence, Italy. Otherwise, you all have a great one. If I don't see you over the weekend, I hope you have a wonderful and awesome weekend. Thanks very much, and see you around.